welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. In today's video, we're going to be starting a brand new mini-series, as you could probably see from the title and thumbnail. Yes, I am setting up a brand new goldfish tank, which I am very, very excited about. It's always really exciting setting up a brand new goldfish tank, whether you are a beginner in the hobby or you are an experienced fish keeper. Now, in today's mini-series, we're going to be setting up a basic goldfish tank. This is going to be a real budget-friendly tank to show new hobbyists how they can get into the hobby and still have a really, really nice setup that's going to work well for them, provide low maintenance, low running costs and low initial startup price. So obviously we have to first start with a tank. So let me start by showing you what tank I've selected for this series. Here is the tank in question right behind me. It might be very hard to see this tank actually behind me because it is actually made of full opti-white glass. So the entire tank is made of opti-white glass, which is a low iron glass, which means you can really see through it, and it's, I would say, probably as close as you can get to acrylic. Now you can kind of see the tank behind me if I just hold the camera up here. So this is a 60 by 38 by 40 centimeter tall aquarium, and this is actually the Scaper 90, which is a super fish tank. Now this tank holds 90 litres, and as you can see in comparison to the Goldfish Mega Tank, if I hold the camera here, you can see it is absolutely tiny. So this tank still holds 90 litres. Now I would always recommend getting the biggest tank possible for your fancy goldfish, but this tank will do the job for some small fish. The aim of this series is to set up a budget-friendly starter aquarium for the everyday hobbyist to get into the hobby. As your fish grow, I assume generally most people upgrade their tanks. Obviously, it would be great if everyone could start off with a 450 litre aquarium, but that is really not possible, and that is not where hobbyists tend to start in the beginning of their goldfish keeping. So I'm going to be setting this tank up in today's video. As I mentioned, fully opti-white glass. I believe the retail on this tank is £140. However, I picked this tank up brand new second hand for £75 with the light as well. And now I'm going to show you the light and the rest of the equipment that I'm going to be running on this aquarium. Hopefully you can see we've just got the aquarium to the left of me. As I mentioned, it is a 90 litre tank. Obviously, as I did say, just want to make sure people know the bigger the size tank, the better for fancy goldfish, and I'm merely just trying to show you how to get into the hobby if you don't already have an aquarium, and how you can do this on a budget-friendly level. So I mentioned I paid £75 second hand for this brand new aquarium, so it hadn't actually been used, but it was missing the filter, and with that I got a light as well. So the light I got was the one that was included with the tank. It's a real slimline LED light, and this runs on 32 watts of power, so it is a very powerful LED, and I have actually placed it above the tank. It comes with the plug and transformer here, and it is super bright. Now you definitely don't need a light as bright as this one, but because this one came with the tank and it provides a really nice spectrum over the tank, I thought, why not, let's go with this and see how it does. If you did want to save a little bit of money on energy costs, there are so many budget-friendly lights out there, and I would say something around 10, maybe 15 watts would be absolutely ample over a tank just like this one. So that is the tank and light out the way. Let's talk a little bit about filtration, something very simple to set up. Now, there are a lot of different filtration methods we could use on this tank. We could use an internal filter, we could use a canister filter, a hang-on back filter, a DIY filter. There are so many different options. Now, because this is a budget tank series and I really want to keep everything as simple as possible, I'm going to be running sponge filters on this aquarium. Now, you may be thinking, a sponge filter, really? Is that going to do the job on this tank? And yes, I believe you can keep fancy goldfish with sponge filters just like this one here if you do the correct maintenance on your tank and you look after the fish. Now obviously on this tank I have a huge inbuilt sump filter. We have about 35 kilos of media. We have sponges, filter fleece, UV, etc. But I really want to keep things as simple as possible on this tank, and I want to experiment a little bit. I think experimentation is really, really good. Now what I'm going to be doing is, as you can see here, this is a sponge filter, or this is a sponge filter on the box, and what I'm actually going to be doing is doubling these up, so they're going to be double the height. So essentially I'm going to be using 4 of these big sponge filters on this tank. Now instead of having 4 sponge filters next to each other taking up a lot of room in the tank, I'm stacking them 2 by 2 to make them higher and not take up as much floor space and actually harbour dirt and detritus beneath them. Now I'm also going to be running an air pump on these sponge filters, and that is where I'm going to be using this Fluval 202 air pump. Now I haven't actually previously used the Fluval air pumps before, but I've been told that they're fairly quiet, nice and compact shape as well, so I'm going to be giving that a go on this tank. Real cheap, easy budget filter. Obviously the air pump is the most expensive at around £35, but there are many cheaper air pumps on the market. You can normally pick up a brand new air pump for around £20, and then obviously the sponge filters, I believe I paid about £6.50 for each for 4 of these filters, so you're probably looking at maybe around 50 quid, something like that, for the setup. As I said, super simple to set up, super easy to maintain, which is what I'm trying to go with in this series. So we've gone over the filter, we've gone over the light, and we've gone over the tank. Now I'm going to customize this tank a little bit, so let's head over to the kitchen and I'm going to show you what I will be doing with this tank, how I'm going to start customizing it and getting it ready for fish. As you can see behind me, we are now in the kitchen area, and I've actually cleared the kitchen side ready for the new tank to go on it. Now definitely one thing I would say is when you're adding a tank to your kitchen counter or kitchen side, make sure it is really solid, make sure there is enough support to take the weight of your tank. I definitely wouldn't advise putting a tank much larger than the one I am placing on here, because they do get very heavy and you need to make sure you have adequate support to hold the tank. So the tank is going to go in the corner of the kitchen here. As you can see, space is a little bit limited, so potentially a canister filter may not work. I do have some really small canister filters that could potentially work, but I really want to try that internal filter first. Now you'll also notice we have some plug sockets, some switches, fuses, etc. behind the tank, and I don't want those to be visible when we are trying to focus on the fish within the aquarium. So I'm going to be applying a background to the back and the side of the aquarium, and also underneath. Now I've seen this style of background done a couple of times before, but I've never seen anyone in the UK do it, so I'm going to attempt to apply a black granite style background. Now I always like to use black backgrounds on my aquariums because it really helps to elevate the fish's colours and really make them pop, and I really like the look of the sort of black granite style look and have that as a vinyl background. So I'm going to grab the tank now, we're going to place it here, we're going to get some vinyl on it, fingers crossed it adheres properly, and then we can start to get all the filtration set up and get it ready for some fish. Got the tank right behind me, gonna start applying the vinyl and hopefully it turns out well. Let's get started on this and then we can see what the final product looks like and see how it removes all of those plug sockets and switches from behind the tank and really allows us to have a nice focus on the fish that will be eventually added to it. So, cue the time lapse. So here you can see me applying the vinyl to the back of the aquarium. Now obviously you can see there is a white sheet on the back of this vinyl because you are supposed to peel this off and then lay the vinyl onto a surface like a countertop or something you are customizing it with, but I had to have it reversed, so I wanted the granite vinyl side inside the tank. I'm just applying it with some water, gonna see how it works. I've not done this method before, so it is a little bit of trial and error. It was quite hard to apply, and I did have to use a little bit of tape to hold it into place and keep it firm from coming off. But overall, it all went on in the end, and I'm fairly happy with the finished product, and it looks quite good on camera and in person. Definitely could be improved a little bit, but worked nonetheless, and I definitely would try this method again. But as you can see, we now have the light running on the tank. I'm loving the look of the background. It definitely isn't perfect, but to me it looks amazing. It is just what I wanted. The background isn't too dark as well. We have nice hints of blue and grey going through it, and you can obviously see we have our two double stacked sponge filters in the back corner there. You may notice that they don't actually have the sponges on them, and that is because the sponges are in the main tank, maturing, gathering lots of beneficial bacteria. So when I do add fish to this tank, I can put those sponges straight in the same day I add the fish. The air pump is located in the corner, and I've got all of my little kitchen utensils like the kettle and etc. back there. And I'm actually going to be using this bamboo chopping board just here, and that's actually going to go in that back corner to hide the air pump, hide the plugs, etc. Make it look nice and neat. So that is it for today's video. In episode 2, we're going to be filling it up with water, testing out the sponge filters, seeing how they work. Hopefully they are not going to spill out of the top. Hopefully we're not going to get any water coming out of the sides and going onto the walls, etc. But that will be all revealed in episode 2. And then in episode 3, we're going to be adding our fish to this tank. So if you do have any questions on this tank, please leave a comment down below and I will do my best to answer it. But as mentioned, we have our light, we have our tank, and we have our sponge filters and also our air pump. Really cheap tank to put together. Think probably if you were buying all of this, you'd probably be looking at maybe around 130, 140 pounds. Obviously you can get it all a lot cheaper second hand, but really a nice entry level tank. Definitely we can have a few goldfish in this tank, and let's see how these goldfish do, see how the sponge filters cope with their bioload, and overall this will be a journey for me and you guys at home to see what different goldfish we can keep in this tank. But that is it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.